Let me ask you a question. What if artificial intelligence, when it gets really smart and autonomous, what if it decides to pick its own money? A currency built not for us, for humans, but for the insane speed and ruthless efficiency of a machine. Well, today we're going to dive into the really compelling case for Solana as that exact currency. Could this be the financial backbone of our machine-driven future? Let's get into it.
Okay, but before we go any further, we have to do the important bit. This whole explainer is just for educational and entertainment purposes. It is absolutely not financial advice. Seriously, we're here to unpack the tech and the story, not tell you what to do with your cash.
So let's just start with the central question that frames this whole thing. I want you to forget about human needs for a second. If an AI was building a financial system from the ground up, what would it actually care about? It wouldn't care about history or brand names or who invented it. Nope, it would care about one thing and one thing only: pure, cold, hard efficiency. And that, right there, is where our story really begins.
Here's how we're going to break it down today. We're going to start with Solana's secret weapon, its core tech. Then we'll cover its near-death experience, a totally bizarre story about a phone, the main argument for why an AI would even look at it, and finally, what this all could mean for the future.
All right, first up, let's talk about the problem Solana was actually built to solve. See, before Solana came along, blockchains had this massive bottleneck. They were slow, and they were super expensive. That's a total non-starter for a machine economy that's going to need to operate in like microseconds.
And I mean, just look at this comparison. The difference in scale is just wild. Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're absolute pioneers, no doubt, but their transaction speeds are pretty slow, and the costs, well, they can go to the moon when a lot of people are using them. Solana was designed from day one to be the exact opposite, ridiculously fast with transaction fees that are literally fractions of a penny.
So how in the world does it do that? Well, the secret sauce is this really clever innovation called proof of history. Think about it like this. Most other blockchains waste a ton of energy and time just arguing about what order transactions happened in. Solana's founder, a guy named Anatoly Yakovenko, he basically built a cryptographic clock right into the blockchain itself. Everyone can just look at the timestamp, there's no argument, which means everything can just move way, way faster.
And that leads to this idea of throughput. It's really just a fancy word for how many deals you can push through the system at the same time. Because proof of history gets rid of all the stopping and arguing about time, the Solana blockchain basically turns into a massive superhighway with absolutely no stoplights, just pure speed.
But listen, all that speed means nothing if the system can't take a punch in the real world. Every great technology has to go through a trial by fire. And for Solana, that trial was its super deep connection to the crypto exchange FTX and its now infamous founder Sam Bankman-Fried.
This quote just perfectly captures how bad things were back then. FTX was Solana's biggest supporter, its biggest investor. So when it completely imploded, the story was simple. Solana was just a Sam coin, and it was going to go down with the ship. I mean, pretty much everyone was writing its obituary.
And you can see on this chart just how brutal it got. The price absolutely cratered. It went from a peak of $260 all the way down to just $8. It really looked like it was all over. But while the price collapsed, something really important was happening behind the scenes. The developers, the builders, they didn't leave. They actually doubled down. They kept building, and against all odds, they proved the network was so much more than just its biggest backer. That resilience is now a huge part of its identity.
There's actually a fancy economic theory for this. It's called Schumpeterian creative destruction. It sounds complex, but the idea is simple. Sometimes, for something truly new and innovative to rise, the old, broken, and even corrupt stuff holding it up has to get completely wiped out first. The argument is that the FTX collapse, as terrible as it was, actually set Solana free. It let the technology prove it could survive on its own merit.
Okay, so that same community that stuck around then became part of one of the weirdest and most interesting stories in tech. It's the story of the Solana Saga phone, and it perfectly shows you the power of these new kinds of crypto incentives. It started out as a total flop, and then, practically overnight, it became a collector's item.
So here's how this crazy thing happened. Solana releases this phone, right? And basically nobody buys it. It's a dud. So to try and get people interested, they included a free airdrop of this new meme coin called Bonk. Now at first, Bonk was totally worthless, but then the price of Bonk just exploded. All of a sudden, the free tokens you got for buying the phone were worth way more than the phone itself. It created this bizarre gold rush where people were scrambling to buy a phone, not for the phone, but for the free tokens that came with it.
And this whole thing was powered by this concept of an airdrop. It's this marketing tactic that's pretty unique to crypto. It's where a project just sends free money, free tokens, right into your digital wallet to reward you for being an early user or for being loyal. The Sagaphone story was proof that you could actually link hardware and software together in a way that could turn a failing product into a massive hit. It's wild.
All right, this brings us to the real heart of this explainer, the AI efficiency test. Why would a purely logical, resource-hungry intelligence look at all the different options out there and maybe, just maybe, choose Solana? Well, the answer comes down to a really simple economic principle: efficiency.
Economists have a name for this. It's called Pareto efficiency. It just means a state of perfect allocation, the path of least resistance. An AI doesn't care about stories or marketing. It cares about getting from point A to point B with the absolute minimum amount of wasted energy and resources. It's always going to seek the most efficient path, whether it's for crunching data or for sending payments.
And this quote just drives the point home perfectly. I want you to imagine a future where AI agents are constantly paying each other for little bits of data or for a second of computing power. We're talking about millions, maybe billions of tiny microtransactions happening every single second. You can't pay a $20 fee on Ethereum for that. You can't even pay a $1 fee. And waiting 10 minutes for a Bitcoin transaction to confirm, that's an eternity for a machine. They need instant, basically free settlement.
Now, of course, not everybody sees Solana in the same light. From a more right-centric point of view, you could see it as the ultimate free market where raw speed and efficiency are all that matter and the best tech wins. A more left-centric view might worry that it's too centralized, pointing to network outages as a sign that it could become a kind of digital oligarchy. And then there's a classic Japanese engineering perspective, which might see it as a high-performance engine that's always undergoing rapid improvement, the principle of Kaizen, even if it has some flaws along the way.
And speaking of performance, that engine is about to get a truly massive upgrade. There's a new piece of software being built for the network called FireDancer, and its target is 1 million transactions per second. Let me say that again, 1 million. To put that in perspective, that is more than all the world's credit card networks and stock markets combined. It's just a mind-boggling number.
So what do we do with all this information? Where does this all leave us? Let's try and tie it all together with the key lessons we've learned and what some of the forecasters saying about the future of this network.
For me, 4 things really stand out. First, proof of history showed us that when it comes to blockchains, time literally is money. Second, surviving that FTX nightmare proved that resilience is everything. Third, the potential needs of an AI economy show us that a future of tiny, instant micropayments is probably coming. And finally, that crazy Sagaphone story revealed a whole new way to merge our physical and digital worlds. So, looking ahead, the short-term forecast is probably just chaos. The network's super low fees are likely going to attract a meme coin supercycle. Now, that sounds silly, but it's actually going to be the biggest stress test you could ever imagine for the system. But the long-term vision, the big dream, is that Solana eventually just becomes invisible, like the plumbing in your house, the essential, high-speed infrastructure for a totally new automated economy. Which leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. As we build out this future, and as machines start paying each other at a scale that we can barely even comprehend, what financial language are they going to choose to speak? Will it be a language built for human habits and history, or one built for pure, unadulterated machine logic?